Yo,
What's up?
so I don't believe Christianity is logical at all.
Okay.
So I don't know why you have that tag right there.
What faith are you?
I am Muslim.
Okay. Why is it not logical?
I don't believe Jesus could be God
Why?
because it's impossible for a man to be God.
I think it's impossible for a man to be God, but do you believe it's impossible for God to take on a human flesh?
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's within the universe.
Who's within the universe?
Whoever is taking on God, whoever is taking on flesh as God.
I don't know what you mean by he's within. So you're saying, or do you believe God's all powerful?
Yeah, he is, but that's not limiting him, by the way. So it's a bad argument.
Well, I'm just asking, if he's all powerful, do you believe he's powerful enough to take on a human flesh if he chose to?
That's not being powerful. That's just degrading yourself. Which I don't believe God can do. So.
Okay, so God's not all powerful. He's not powerful enough to do that.
Just because he can't do that doesn't mean he's not all powerful.
Okay. So, just because he can't do that, it doesn't mean he's all powerful?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, not all powerful then. Okay, so what would be the reason for him not having the ability to do that?
Because he's literally degrading himself.
That's just your opinion. Can you tell me why it would mean that he's degrading himself?
Because he's making himself not all powerful and not all knowing, which would not make any sense because he is all powerful.
So if you believe, okay, good. So if you're making the claim that by him becoming human, he stops being God, then I would agree with you. That's not logical. But that's not the claim.
How would he become God after being a human?
Huh?
But then how would he reverse himself back to being God?
Well, that's what I'm going to tackle here. You have a misunderstanding as to what we believe. We don't believe that his divine nature changed into a human nature. That's not what we believe.
Okay.
So if that was the case, if that's what the Christians are claiming and what we believe, then I would agree with you. That's illogical. That's not possible to happen. But that's not the claim. The claim is that God took on a second nature that doesn't mix and doesn't stop being God just because he took on a human nature. So what's the contradiction there?
I just think it's entirely okay, so can you ask me the question again?
Okay. So I would be in agreement with you because you said, starting back to your claim, just so you know that I'm affirming your point. Your point is that it's not possible for God to degrade himself. That's what you said. What you meant was that it's not possible for God to take on a human nature, leave his godly nature, essentially, right? And then go back to being God. That would not be possible. I would agree with you on that. That's not logical. But that's not the belief of Christianity. The belief is that God took on a second nature, never stopped being God. And those two natures, even though they were united within the person, they never mixed together. Okay, so even though I agree with your point, it doesn't apply to what we believe in, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so but do you not see how even that kind of doesn't make any sense?
Okay, you're saying I don't. You can show me why you think it doesn't make sense.
I don't think it makes sense because I don't think you can have someone who is you're basically calling Jesus a demigod, which really does not even make any sense.
What does demigod mean?
Half man, half God.
Okay, we don't believe that either. We believe
you just said that there was two different natures.
Said. I mean that doesn't. His divine nature didn't get cut in half just to take on a second nature. He still was fully, truly God, and he was truly human.
How can you be 100% and 100% at the same time?
Well, that also is a categorical error because God doesn't have percentages in his nature because God is not measurable. So that's what I'm saying. Truly God and truly man. He was a true sense in every aspect of saying that he is God. Jesus was truly that. In every aspect in saying that he is human, Jesus truly experienced that as well.
Okay, but I'm 100% human though. I can't be 100% something else. I can't be 100% human and 100%
I would agree that you cannot take on the divine nature and become God. I agree with that. But that's
Okay, so
not
what is the difference between
that's not what we're claiming. We're claiming that God took on a human nature in order to go through what Jesus went through.
Okay, and why would he have to do that if that did happen?
In order to heal our original sin.
Why would God have to heal our original sin?
Because in our current state of original sin, we cannot spend eternity with him. Once we die, we stay separated from him. But when he took on a human flesh, it healed our original sin. And then when he got consumed by death, he defeated it by resurrecting, so that whoever believes in him will have eternal life and spend eternity with God.
So is your God all forgiving? Because that wouldn't make any sense. If just because we had some original sin or whatever that we wouldn't be able to be with him and heaven.
It makes perfect sense, because our corrupted state cannot be in the presence of something that is perfect. We would be struck dead. We would deconstruct. We would just completely be annihilated. We cannot.
Okay, humans are forever corrupted, though.
No, we don't believe that. Humans are. We are born in a corrupted state, but once we believe in Jesus and are baptized, then we get the deposit of the future resurrection, so that when we get resurrected in our glorified state, we're no longer corrupted.
Okay, why do you believe that people are born as sinners? Because to me that makes no sense. As a baby, you can be a sinner. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so you would have to define what does it mean to be a sinner? What do you think that means?
One who sins. But I don't know how to.
See, there you go. So this is where kind of like Muslims and Christians start to talk past each other. You need to define terms. The way you look at sin is, and I don't even really know what the fundamental definition of sin is in Islam, but for Christianity,
it's just going against what Allah is saying in the Quran.
Okay, so Christians do have a similar definition, but that's more surface level. It is going against God's word, but more core to the idea of sin. The word sin in Hebrew is kata, and it actually is an archery term meaning missing the mark. So what mark are you missing? Well, it could be going against God's word, but essentially it's going against our purpose as humans. When we go against what we were created for. So when we fall short of that mark, that would be sin. So according to the Bible, we were made to be in communion with each other and with God, and we're supposed to love each other. When we don't love each other and we only love ourselves, then that would be a form of sin. Would you agree with that? I don't know if Islam has a similar idea or not, to be honest, but would you agree with that or no?
Can you say the last part again?
Like, if we were made to love each other, right? And not to be selfish. That's what we were created for, right? So when somebody's being selfish, right, just thinking of themselves and not caring about other people, that would be a core fundamental like view of sin. Being
selfish is a sin? I don't know if being selfish is a sin in Islam, to be honest.
Well, there you go. That's where we kind of part ways. So if you don't believe being selfish and not caring about other people is a sin, then we're not. Well, we're talking about being healed from sin and everything like that is just a moot point. We have completely fundamental different beliefs.
Well, no, of course we have to care about other people because that's sunnah. So like I don't know if it's like if you're just minding your own business and you're just being like, I don't know.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like being selfish. Like, for example, you see somebody. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying not minding your own business or like, I'm not saying that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about being selfish, like prideful, right? So
no, being prideful is a sin, yeah.
Okay, cool. So and then being selfish, would you say like?
Well, we shouldn't be selfish. We should be caring for others.
Okay, good.
Others if we can.
All right. So, do you have any kids?
No, I don't.
Have you been around any like siblings that were babies, or nephews or cousins or anything like that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an infant be so selfish to the point where they're crying and pouting?
Well, yeah, but I don't think so. I don't think that they should be held accountable for that because they're literally babies.
I'm not saying they're being held accountable. I'm just asking, have you seen that happen?
Why would that be a sin for them?
Well, it's not talk. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to be held accountable for that. What I'm saying is, where is that coming from? Is that an instinctual thing for them to react this way?
I mean, I couldn't tell you, but I'd assume so.
Okay. So that's why we believe there's original sin. We're born in a corrupted nature that instinctually causes us to be selfish. I'm not saying babies are being held accountable for that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just showing you that even in our everyday life, we see little infants. They're naturally selfish. They're naturally going to think about themselves to the point where they pout. And it's not something they learned, it's instinctual.
Okay, I think all humans are kind of like that, though.
Exactly. That's what the Bible's saying. We're all born with this.
So then, what's the point? But then you just said that babies are sinners, though.
We're born sinners. That's what we believe. Yes. You asked, why do we believe this? I'm giving you a demonstration.
Yeah, I don't think you can be born with sin at all.
I know, but you just agreed that instinctually infants are behaving like sinners.
Yeah, they can act like a sinner, but it's not being held accountable for that.
Bro, put the accountability thing away. I'm not talking about being held accountable. I'm just demonstrating how we're born sinners. That's all.
That is literally the only thing that matters in this argument.
No, it isn't. Not for what you asked, why we believe we're born with original sin. I just demonstrated why. It's not just because the Bible tells us, it's because it makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. So what's your next point?
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to say, like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I think it's disrespectful that you guys believe that, okay, so what, you do believe Jesus is God, though, right, at the end of the day?
Of course.
Okay, so I think it's disrespectful that you think that your God was on a cross being tortured, and he probably had his meat out or whatever. And I think it's also disrespectful that you guys think that he died for multiple days.
That's just your opinion. Why do I care what you think?
Well, I don't think it's an opinion. I don't think God can die for 3 days.
What's the definition of death?
What's the definition of death?
Mm-hmm.
No brain function, I would say.
The Muslim and Christian definition is the same. The Muslim and Christians agree that the definition of death is separation of soul and body.
Well, yeah, I mean, I assume that happens when your brain is not functioning anymore.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that your brain's not functioning anymore, but I'm just going down. That's a result of it. I'm going to the definition of it. The definition would be the separation of soul and body. That's what Muslims agree on. That's what Christians agree. We don't disagree on that. So if that's the definition of death, I would agree, because God doesn't have a natural body, right, or a natural soul, a created soul. So yes, in his divine nature, he can't die. However, if God takes on a human nature and then the soul and the body separate, then he can experience death only if he incarnates. So it's not a contradiction to say that.
Okay, even then it's still humiliating.
I mean, it is humiliating, I agree. But the way we view it is, because you just gave me your opinion, that's fine. The way we view it is, we see it as the ultimate form of love, that he was willing to go through that in order to heal our original sin. He sacrificed himself. It's self-sacrifice.
Why would anyone else be held accountable for my sin?
It's not that he's being held accountable for your sin, because I don't believe in penal substitution. I'm not a Protestant. What I believe is that he did that in order to heal my original sin. It's not a judge passing down a punishment. It's more like a doctor coming in for healing.
Okay, I still don't see how there's any reason for God to do that, though.
Yes, because you're a Muslim, but remember, you're doing an internal critique. For us, we believe that people are born with original sin, as I demonstrated. And this original sin, according to our theology, you cannot spend eternity with God in that corrupted state. There needs to be a healing of that. And his death, burial, and resurrection heals that. That's why. So remember, you said Christianity is illogical, right? That's an internal, like you would be naturally doing an internal critique. You can't sit here and say it's illogical because it goes against Islam. Well, that's just your opinion at that point, right? You would need to adopt what we believe in for the sake of the conversation and point out what is illogical about what we believe.
Yeah, I still think so. You just said that you believe Jesus is God, and I still think it's illogical for you to believe that a human can be God.
Okay, why?
Because you can't have a God. You can't have a God that's limited. No one just go get the definition of a God, which means they're not God. So
we don't believe God by incarnating the divine person of Jesus ultimately became limited. No, we believe he went through an experience, a limited experience of a human, but that doesn't mean he was ultimately limited.
Well, Jesus was limited, though, no?
If you're talking about when he went through a human experience, he experienced limitations. That doesn't mean he was actually limited.
So what you're saying is that Jesus could have just gotten up and like just flied around type shit and just done whatever he wanted to do.
He also, he walked on water, didn't he? Do you know anybody else who can?
Okay, so all the prophets have miracles.
Well, there you go, bro. Like you're saying you pose the question of wait, he could just fly around as if that's
what I meant by that.
Hold on. You presented a question of like, oh, can he just fly around? As if that's something that is not possible, but even you believe he walked on water. So your point doesn't stand.
What I meant by that is that so he could just get up and just become God, basically.
What do you mean by get up and become God? He's already God.
Because you said that he's limiting himself, which means that he's technically not limited.
Dude, I don't think you're following this conversation, bro.
You just said that he's limiting himself.
No, what I said was he was not limited ultimately, but went through a human experience, which will be an experience of limitation. That doesn't mean he was actually fully limited.
Okay, no. If Jesus didn't eat food and drink water, would he die?
Well, he didn't do it for 40 days and 40 nights when he went to the desert.
Okay.
Do you know any human that can go into the desert without food and water for 40 days and 40 nights and survive?
Without water?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I would just say that's a miracle.
There you go. So bro, so the thing is you believe God, so you're gonna say anything that I show you, you're gonna pose a question, well, can he do this? Can he do that? When I show you something that shows that he is not showing limitations, even in this human experience, you're just gonna say it's a miracle, and that doesn't mean he's God. Dude, like
it's through the will of God.
Yeah,
God allowed him to do that.
And guess what? And we believe it's because he is God. So you're imposing your Islamic beliefs on this. This is no longer an internal critique. So how about since you want to keep imposing Islam, how about we get to why do you believe the Quran is from God? Because then if you can prove that, then all of your claims will be legitimate.
Yeah, of course I believe it's from God.
How do you know it's from God?
Of course it's from God. What do you mean?
How do you know?
Like that's just. I think it's a dumb question because.
You think it's a dumb question because you don't know the answer,
yeah,
bro.
Because why would it be revealed to Muhammad, and why would Muhammad have to go through everything he went through in his life, and then on top of that, where is he getting this information from? Mm-hmm. On top of that, where is he getting this perfect literacy from? It doesn't make any sense.
So you're saying that all this information that he received necessarily had to come from God?
Yeah, because it couldn't have came from anywhere else.
Why do you assume it couldn't have come from anywhere else?
Because the information inside of it.
Yeah, I know. You said that already. Why do you assume that information could have only come from God? Why should I believe that?
What do you mean? Why should you believe that?
Yeah, dude, you're stuck. Look, you see how this starts to. You see how I answered. You see how I answered all your questions about Christianity, but the minute I ask a simple question about your faith, you're stuck. You don't know what to say.
That's not true.
Okay, then answer the question. Why do I need to believe that this information could have only came from God?
There's multiple examples. One of them, you can look up. Let me go look up the verse real quick.
Guys, do you think he's coming back or not? Put a 1 if he's coming back. Put a 2 if he's dropping. Yeah, most people think, some people believe you're coming back. One person does. No, two people do. Most people think you're dropping. 3 people believe you're coming back.
Go to 4153.
Okay, you're back. Nice. Chapter 41.
Verse 53.
Okay. And this is going to show me that this necessarily had to come from God. Okay. All right, let me put it on the screen 1 second. For YouTube. Why does it do that? All right. We will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this Qur'an is the truth. Is it not enough that you, Lord, is a witness over all things? What does this tell me? How does this prove to me that this information necessarily had to come from God? You're muted, by the way, when you're away from the TikTok app.
No, I know.
Chat, can you guys explain to me how this proves that this information necessarily had to come from God? Maybe chat can explain it to me.
No, sorry. 5517.
Okay, 5517. Got it. 5517. Let's see. He is Lord of the 2 easts and the 2 west.
Yeah.
How does this prove to me that this information necessarily had to come from God?
Do you know what it's trying to talk about?
No, bro. Can you explain?
Yeah, it's talking about Kepler 16b, the planet that is how many light years away?
Okay. All right, cool. So it's giving me a scientific information? Is that what it's giving me, scientific facts?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Why does you just you still didn't answer my question. Let me grant it to you that it's a scientific fact.
I don't think anyone knows.
I know you don't think that, but why should I believe what you don't think? Like, why should we assume?
It's fact. No one
Can
knew
you?
about that because it's how many light years away.
No worries. No worries. Why do I have to believe that only God could have given this information?
Because no one else, and that's not even the full explanation of the verse.
Bro, I'll grant you whatever you want. Bro, I'll grant you whatever you want with the science. I'll even admit that there's no human in Arabia 1400 years ago that was illiterate that could have known this stuff. I'll grant that to you. I'll grant that even though for the sake of argument, I'll even grant that the science is perfect. Okay? Why should I assume that this information could have only came from God?
Because where else is it coming from?
Couldn't it come from Satan?
No, because why would Satan be advocating for all of these things?
To deceive you into thinking he's God?
No, that makes no sense. If Satan wanted to deceive you, he would do so via bad things, not good things. So that
you know what Satan would do to deceive you?
Yeah.
How do you know?
What do you mean? How do I know?
How do you know what Satan would do to deceive you? Where do you get this from?
Through sins. What do you mean?
Through sins. Do you know Satan personally, that you know what he would do to deceive you?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay, bro.
Why would Satan be telling me to go follow?
If Satan is trying to deceive you into thinking he's God, wouldn't he tell you to do good things in order to deceive you into thinking he's God?
Okay, but then he's not winning.
If Allah is Satan, he won. Yes, he got it.
That literally makes no sense. I'm sorry. That does not make any sense.
I think really what you're saying is, when you say it doesn't make sense, I don't think you actually mean it's not coherent. I think what it is that it goes against your belief so much that you're just denying it for no reason.
That's not what it is. How are you going to tell me that Satan is telling me to do good things? That does not make any sense.
Okay, does the Dajjal do miracles in the future to convince people he's God?
Does he do? Yeah, he does.
Okay. Is he God?
No, he's not.
Okay. So it's even in your belief, it's possible. So my thing is, why wouldn't Satan, if he's trying to disguise himself as God, tell you to do good things, but then have you bow down to him?
Okay, why would they say that he is the number one enemy then? Or why would he tell everyone else that he is the number one enemy?
So we're just because he's saying he's the number one, and by the way, that's not what it says. It says you guys curse Shaitan, right?
No, I know, but that's essentially what it's saying. So why would he say that?
Shaitan is not a name, bro.
Why would he say that?
Do you know what Shaitan means?
It's the devil.
I mean, the devil is another name. It's another title. It's not a name either. But devil just means it comes from the Greek diabolos, which just means slanderer. But Satan in the Hebrew, which is hasatan, it just means adversary, someone who opposes you. So, if we're having a debate, I'm your Satan and you're my Satan, right? We're adversaries, right? We're opposing each other. So that's all Satan means. His name, even in your belief, is Iblis, right? He has a name. So does Iblis have a Satan or an adversary?
Yeah, his adversary would be God.
So if Iblis is actually Allah and you're cursing his adversary, you're cursing God.
No.
Just saying.
No, because
that's what it would be. If my theory is correct, all you're doing is cursing Iblis's adversary, which would be God.
No.
Okay, you can say no all day long, but I mean that's just what it would boil down to.
because Satan is not telling me to do.
How do you know?
Did not write the Quran. What do you mean?
Okay, can you prove that it's necessarily from God then?
I just did.
No, you didn't. All you did was just present scientific information. Who cares?
Okay, so scientific information that no one else would know. So then, where is this coming from?
Satan could know. Satan. Why couldn't Satan know that? Why couldn't Satan know this, bro? You're making an assumption that you're not actually substantiating.
Bro, because it's not from Satan.
I know that's what you believe, bro. Repeating what you believe is not substantiating it, bro.
Because it doesn't make any sense for that to come from Satan.
Yeah, repeating your claim over and over again is not substantiating it, bro. You need to substantiate.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
All right, guys, should
any sense that Satan is telling us?
Guys, if he's stuck, put a number 1. If he's not stuck, put a number 2.
Bro, how does it make any sense for Satan to be telling us?
I already told you, to deceive you into thinking he's God.
That doesn't make any sense. Satan would not want us to do good in the world.
Look at all the people.
That's exactly why evil people in the world want you to do evil things.
Okay, brother. Well, you're stuck. That's what the audience says. So have a good day, brother. I mean, what else can I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got stuck. What's up?